Hello everyone! Today we are working on our practice carousel books. So using the directions on this first sheet, you are going to cut out the cover for your carousel book. So you can see that it's your front and back cover combined. I am using a metal ruler to ensure that my cuts are perfectly straight. Okay, so we want to make sure that all of our lines are nice and neat. You can see that I'm going back over to kind of clean up anything that I didn't think was neat enough. As you continue with your X-Acto knife, we are going to then go into our foreground and background spreads. So right now you can see I am cutting out my background spreads. I like to do the outsides first and then go in and cutting out the insides. You have to be careful for this next one because the foreground is a little bit smaller than our background spreads. This is what really makes the book pop out when we add our foreground with our background. Now here's where we get into the tricky part of cutting. I like to do all of my straight lines first with a ruler. Okay, so here you can see I'm using my X-Acto knife to cut out all the straight inside lines. Then this is where you have to be really careful. We want to curve around. I also like to take out small pieces to make my cutting easier as I'm going. Okay, we always want to work smarter, not harder. Work what kind of makes it easier for you. If you want to make all your cuts first and then pop it out, you can do it that way. I just like taking sections at a time. It's just my preference with cutting. Again, this is a great way for us to practice our cutting skills with an X-Acto knife. Notice how I have my cutting mat underneath while I am cutting. And also when you are cutting, you always cut away from your fingers, okay? I use my left hand, since I am right-handed, to hold down my paper. I also rotate the paper to make it easier to cut. Again, always work for what you're comfortable with, especially with working with sharp objects. You want to ensure that you are comfortable and confident in your cutting skills. Again, that's why this practice assignment is so great, to get better at being confident with your cutting skills. Continue cutting out all of our frames. This is our last foreground frame that you see above. So we're almost done with the foreground frames. And then the next step is to begin to assemble and glue together our foreground and then our backgrounds. Now that we have everything cut out, we want to fold all of our vertical lines. Notice that I'm using my metal ruler still to fold these lines. The reason why I'm using a metal ruler is to ensure that my lines are perfectly straight. This is very important for when you're folding. For now, while you are folding, it doesn't matter really which way you are folding. However, at the end, we want the middle of our scenes to be going backward, and then the edges of our scenes to be folding towards us, okay, because those are going to be popping out. The last thing we are going to fold are the flaps on our cover. Okay, so using your metal ruler, it makes it easier to fold these as well. Then we're going to flip our cover over to see the white side, and you're going to use your chipboard pieces to glue onto either side of the cover, front and back on the inside. Then you will take your glue and we will glue the flaps inward on top of the chipboard. However, I do recommend cutting the corners like you see here and then gluing them. I just feel like it makes a more seamless gluing, and now your cover is done. Time to glue our foreground spread. So you want to glue flap number 2 to the front of foreground gray flap number 3. Glue the combined flap to the back of the spread, which you can see I'm doing now. And then you can use binder clips to hold this together so you don't have to. Then you're going to take number 4 and number 5, and you're going to glue those together as well. So 4 meets 5. Again, you can hold it, but I highly recommend putting on binder clips so you don't have to do that. So while that's drying, I'm going to start with my background. So I'm gluing 2 to 3 Okay, and then again, clip it on some binder clips, let that dry. And I can go back to my foreground. So that underneath flap, I'm gluing to the back of the spread. Okay, so there's no extra flaps. And again, using binder clips to secure that and putting that to the side. Lastly, I'm gluing 4 to 5 on the background spread. And again, using my binder clips to hold this together. Make sure that all of your combined flaps in the back are glued in the back. Moving on to step 4, we are going to glue the back of foreground flap number 1 on top of background flap number 1. Then where all of the pages change, so where 1 meets 2, glue them together. Where 3 meets 4, glue those together. And where 5 meets 6, glue those together as well. I do recommend using binder clips for after gluing these. So you'll see I'm kind of gluing them down, but then I'm going to fold it right here and add binder clips so those do not fall apart. Lastly, you want to glue 6, okay, the back of foreground number 6 to the front of background number 6 to complete your book, or the inside of your book, that is. Make sure you're taking your time and these are lining up, you're nice and neat. And then make sure that it dries enough before you take off your binder clips. While that is drying, you can glue each ribbon to the stars on the gray flaps of the cover. Once you do that, you can glue the back of number 1 to the back of the front cover. Again, I do recommend adding binder clips to secure this because this part is a lot heavier and it really needs that support, so I used like 4. Then you're going to glue the back of number 6 to your back cover. Again, use binder clips to secure this and make sure it thoroughly dries before you take your binder clips off. I hope you enjoyed this process, seeing how a carousel book is made, and I cannot wait to see how your final creative books turn out. Again, here is Life of a Bulldog. Enjoy!